Capricorn, Capricorn. These comments make them disappear without warning. Number 5 is brutal. Have you ever had that moment when a Capricorn just disappears? No explanation, no fight, no drama, just silence. And you're left wondering what the heck happened? Let me tell you something that will completely change the way you communicate with Capricorns. They don't disappear without a reason. There's always a trigger, a phrase, a seemingly harmless comment that crossed an invisible line you didn't even know existed. And here's the problem. Most people cross that line without the slightest awareness. They say things thinking they're being honest, direct, or even funny. But for a Capricorn, those words are final sentences. There's no second warning. There's no second chance. In this video, I'm going to reveal the 5 brutal comments that will make a Capricorn delete you from their life without any warning. And I need to warn you now, comment number 5 is absolutely brutal because it's something people constantly say in relationships, friendships, and even at work, without realizing they're signing their own abandonment order. Capricorns have a unique characteristic. They forgive a lot, endure a lot, tolerate a lot. But when they decide it's over, it's over. There's no reconciliation. There's no going back. That person simply ceases to exist in their universe. It's as if you've been erased from their emotional memory. What makes this even more devastating is that Capricorns don't make empty threats. They don't say, "I'm leaving to get attention." When they leave, they simply leave. And you only realize it when it's too late, when messages go unanswered, when invitations are ignored, when you become invisible to someone who once considered you important. So if you have a Capricorn in your life and want to keep them close, pay close attention to what I'm about to reveal. And if you are a Capricorn, you will finally understand why certain comments affect you so deeply that the only possible response is silent disappearance. Get ready, because what you're about to discover could save relationships you didn't even know were in danger. But before we dive into these relationship-ending comments, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and hit that like button. Because what you're about to learn might just save your most valuable connections. And if you're a Capricorn yourself, you're finally going to understand why certain words cut so deep that silence becomes your only response. The first comment that makes a Capricorn vanish without warning is deceptively simple. You're so boring. 3 words that seem like casual criticism, but to a Capricorn, they're a death sentence for the relationship. Let me ask you something. What does it mean to be called boring when you've spent your entire life building something meaningful? When you've chosen substance over spectacle, depth over drama, reliability over excitement? Capricorns aren't boring. They're intentional. They're purposeful. They're people who understand that real life isn't a constant highlight reel. Imagine a tree. On the surface, it looks static, unchanging, perhaps even dull compared to fireworks or shooting stars. But beneath the soil, there's an entire universe happening. Roots growing deeper, networks forming, life being sustained. When you call a Capricorn boring, you're admitting you only see the surface. You're saying the depth they offer has no value to you. And here's the brutal truth. Capricorns already worry about this. They already question whether their serious nature makes them unlovable. They watch people gravitate toward the loud, the flashy, the spontaneous, and wonder if their quiet strength will ever be enough. They see the world rewarding superficial excitement and doubt whether anyone will appreciate the profound stability they offer. So when you verbalize that they're boring, you're not introducing a new insecurity. You're confirming their deepest fear. You're saying that what they are, at their core, isn't enough. That their way of existing in the world is insufficient. That they need to be someone else entirely to be worthy of your time. But here's what you don't understand. Capricorns find magic in different places. They find excitement in building something that lasts. In conversations that matter. In plans that come to fruition. In the satisfaction of a job well done. In loyalty that doesn't waver. In love that doesn't need constant validation through grand gestures. There's a difference between boring and stable. Between dull and dependable. Between uneventful and peaceful. Capricorns offer a kind of relationship that doesn't give you constant adrenaline rushes, but instead gives you a foundation so solid you can build your entire life on it. They're the calm in the storm, not the storm itself. When you call them boring, you're revealing something critical. You don't value what they offer. You want entertainment, not partnership. You want stimulation, not security. And Capricorns understand immediately that they will never be enough for you, because you're measuring them against the wrong metrics. And here's where the disappearance happens. Capricorns don't argue this point. They don't try to convince you they're interesting. They don't perform or change or bend themselves into something more exciting to keep you around. Because they've learned something painful, but true. People who think you're boring don't love you. They tolerate you. And Capricorns would rather be alone than tolerated. So they simply leave. Without explanation. Without warning. Because explaining would require them to justify their entire existence to someone who's already decided they're lacking. And Capricorns have too much self-respect for that. They'd rather walk away and find someone who sees their depth as treasure, not burden. The tragedy here is that you'll never know what you lost. You'll never experience the profound loyalty of a Capricorn who chose you. The unwavering support through your darkest times. The practical love that shows up when everyone else's words proved empty. The kind of partnership that doesn't make your heart race, but makes your soul rest. You wanted exciting. You got lonely. And the Capricorn you called boring? They're building something beautiful with someone who finally understood that stability isn't the opposite of passion. It's the foundation for it. The second comment that triggers a Capricorn's permanent exit is, you take everything too seriously. And this one cuts particularly deep because it invalidates their entire approach to life, making them feel defective for caring deeply about things that matter. Let's talk about what too seriously really means. To a Capricorn, it means being responsible. It means thinking before acting. It means considering consequences. It means understanding that actions have weight and words have impact. It means living with integrity even when no one's watching. It means treating commitments as sacred, not casual. But when you say they take things too seriously, you're saying all of that is wrong. That their carefulness is a flaw. That their thoughtfulness is excessive. That their integrity is inconvenient. You're asking them to be careless with things they believe should be handled with care. Picture an architect building a bridge. Every calculation matters. Every measurement counts. One careless decision could mean catastrophe. Now imagine someone walking up and saying, "You take this bridge thing too seriously. Just relax and have fun with it." Would that make any sense? That's how Capricorns feel when you tell them to stop taking life seriously. Because here's what you don't see. Capricorns aren't serious because they want to be. They're serious because they've seen what happens when people aren't. They've watched carelessness destroy relationships. They've witnessed how easily trust can be broken and how hard it is to rebuild. They've experienced the pain of people treating commitments like suggestions and promises like possibilities. Their seriousness isn't uptightness. It's trauma response disguised as personality. It's protection built from past disappointments. It's a shield constructed from every time someone was careless with their heart, their trust, their time. They learned that taking things seriously is how you survive a world where so many people take nothing seriously at all. When you criticize their seriousness, you're asking them to dismantle their primary defense mechanism, to become vulnerable in a way that terrifies them, to trust that you won't be careless with what they value most. But here's the cruel irony. By making this comment, you've already proven you don't handle important things carefully. You've proven you're exactly the kind of person they need protection from. And here's the question that haunts every Capricorn. If they stop taking things seriously, who will? If they stop being responsible, who carries that weight? If they stop caring about consequences, who protects the people they love from preventable disasters? Their seriousness isn't optional. It's integral to their sense of purpose. There's a loneliness in being the only serious person in the room, in caring about things others treat as trivial, in seeing potential catastrophes that everyone else ignores, in being called dramatic for pointing out real problems, in being labeled negative for acknowledging real risks. Capricorns carry this loneliness every single day. So when you tell them they take everything too seriously, you're not offering constructive feedback. You're telling them their fundamental nature is wrong, that who they are is too much, that they need to diminish themselves to be acceptable to you. And that's the moment they decide, I'd rather be alone and serious than partnered and careless. Because Capricorns know something you apparently don't. Some things deserve to be taken seriously. Love, trust, commitment, future, stability, security. These aren't things to lighten up about. These are the things that determine whether your life has meaning or just momentum. And when they disappear after this comment, they're not being dramatic. They're not overreacting. They're not taking your words too seriously. They're simply acknowledging that you want a different person than who they are. And rather than twist themselves into something unrecognizable to please you, they choose to remain whole without you. The brutal truth is that people who tell Capricorns to stop taking things seriously usually want permission to be careless. They want Capricorn to lower their standards so they don't have to rise to meet them. They want the benefits of Capricorn's responsibility without having to be responsible themselves. But Capricorns see through this. They always do. And they'd rather walk away than compromise their values for someone who sees those values as inconvenience rather than virtue. So they disappear. And you're left wondering why they couldn't just lighten up, never understanding that you were asking them to stop being themselves. And no one worth having will ever agree to that. The third comment that makes a Capricorn disappear instantly is particularly vicious. You're just like your father, or you're just like your mother. And depending on their relationship with that parent, this comment either cuts to the bone or triggers a rage so cold it freezes the relationship permanently. Let's unpack why this is so devastating. Capricorns have an intense, complicated relationship with their parents, particularly the father figure. Often, they either desperately wanted approval they never received, or they witnessed failures they swore never to repeat. Either way, their parent represents their blueprint for what to become or what to avoid becoming. When you compare them to their parent, you're touching the rawest nerve in their psyche. If the comparison is to a parent they resent, you've just told them that despite all their efforts to be different, to break cycles, to heal generational trauma, they failed. That they're doomed to repeat the patterns they fought so hard to escape. That their identity isn't their own, but merely an echo of someone else's mistakes. Imagine running from a shadow your entire life, only to be told you are the shadow. That's what this comment does to a Capricorn. It erases every effort at self-creation. It reduces their entire personality to genetic inevitability. It says that nothing they do matters because they're predetermined to be someone they never wanted to be. But if the comparison is to a parent they admired, it's equally devastating in a different way. Because Capricorns who looked up to their parents carry impossible standards. They idealize that parent while simultaneously feeling they'll never measure up. So when you compare them, you're either saying they've achieved something they feel they haven't, which triggers imposter syndrome, or you're weaponizing their greatest role model against them. Here's what most people don't understand. Capricorns are obsessed with legacy, with what they leave behind, with breaking bad patterns and establishing good ones. Their entire life is often a response to their upbringing, either continuing what was good or correcting what was broken. Their identity is carefully constructed, not casually inherited. When you tell them they're just like their parent, you're invalidating that entire construction. You're saying they have no agency, no autonomy, no unique identity, that they're simply reproducing someone else's life rather than creating their own. And for Capricorns, who pride themselves on self-determination and personal responsibility, this is unforgivable. There's also a manipulation tactic buried in this comment that Capricorns recognize immediately. People usually say this during arguments to hurt them, to find the pressure point that guarantees damage, to use their family history as a weapon. And Capricorns absolutely will not tolerate being emotionally manipulated, especially using something as sacred and complicated as their parental relationships. The moment you make this comparison, something dies in their eyes. You see it happen. A light goes out. Because they've just realized that you know where their deepest wounds are, and you're willing to press on them to win an argument or make a point. That you'll weaponize their vulnerability against them. That you're not safe. And safety is everything to a Capricorn. They need to know that the person they're with won't use their traumas against them. Won't exploit their insecurities for leverage. Won't go for the throat when things get difficult. The moment they realize you will, the relationship is over. Not because they're unforgiving, but because they're smart enough to know that someone who hurts you intentionally once will do it again. Here's the brutal reality. Capricorns often had to grow up too fast because of their parents. Either because those parents were absent, unreliable, struggling, or because they placed too much responsibility on young shoulders. Capricorns carry their childhood in their bones, and it shaped everything about who they became. So when you casually throw out a comparison to their parent, you're not making an observation. You're triggering decades of complex emotions. You're bringing up every disappointment, every wound, every fear about becoming someone they don't want to be, or not living up to someone they admired. You're making their entire existence about someone else. And Capricorns will simply refuse to participate in that narrative. They won't defend themselves. Won't explain the 1,000 ways they're different. Won't justify their identity to someone who's already decided to reduce it to a comparison. They'll just leave. And you'll never fully understand why that comment was the final straw, because you don't carry the weight of their family history. You don't know what it cost them to become who they are. When they disappear after this comment, they're protecting something sacred. Their sense of self. Their autonomy. Their belief that they're more than just a product of their upbringing. And they're also protecting themselves from you. Because anyone who would use this comparison as a weapon has revealed they're dangerous to keep close. Before we get to the final 2 comments, I need to ask you something important. Have you ever had someone say something to you that just ended everything? One comment that made you realize you couldn't continue the relationship? If you're a Capricorn, drop in the comments which of these has been said to you and how you reacted. Did you disappear? Did you fight back? Or did you just go silent? And if you know a Capricorn, have you accidentally said any of these? Looking back, do you see now why they distanced themselves? This conversation matters because so many relationships end over misunderstandings that could have been prevented with better awareness. So share your story. Let's learn from each other. Let's build a community of people who communicate with intention rather than carelessness. And now prepare yourself, because the next 2 comments are the most brutal ones. Especially number 5. It's going to hit hard. The 4th comment that triggers permanent disappearance is, you're emotionally unavailable. And this one is particularly cruel because it punishes Capricorns for having boundaries, for protecting themselves, for not offering vulnerability on someone else's timeline. Let's be absolutely clear about something. Capricorns are not emotionally unavailable. They're emotionally careful. There's a massive difference, but most people are too impatient to learn it. Emotional availability for a Capricorn isn't about immediate access to their feelings. It's about earned trust, leading to profound depth. Think of a vault. From the outside, it looks impenetrable, cold, closed off. But inside are the most valuable treasures. Things worth protecting. Things that would be destroyed if exposed too carelessly. Capricorns are vaults. Not because they don't have emotions, but because those emotions are so intense, so deep, so overwhelming that they need protection. When you call them emotionally unavailable, you're essentially complaining that the vault won't open for you on demand. You're frustrated that you can't just walk in and take what you want. But here's what you're missing. Vaults don't open for everyone. They open for people who prove they can be trusted with what's inside. And trust, for a Capricorn, isn't built in days or weeks. It's built in consistent actions over time. You want to know why Capricorns guard their emotions so fiercely? Because they've learned the hard way that people are careless with feelings. They've watched people share their deepest fears only to have them used as weapons later. They've been vulnerable and had that vulnerability mocked, dismissed, or exploited. They've opened their hearts and had those hearts treated like they're disposable. So yes, they're careful now. They're guarded. They test you. They watch how you handle small vulnerabilities before offering big ones. They need to know that you'll treat their emotions like the sacred things they are, not like entertainment or ammunition. And if you can't pass those tests, if you can't be patient, if you complain about their boundaries instead of respecting them, then you've just proven you're exactly the kind of person those boundaries were built to keep out. Here's the question that reveals everything. When you say someone is emotionally unavailable, are you actually saying they won't give you what you want when you want it? Because that's not unavailability. That's autonomy. That's self-protection. That's healthy boundaries. And the fact that you're labeling it as a problem says more about your expectations than their limitations. Capricorns are capable of profound emotional depth. Anyone who's earned their trust knows this. They feel everything with an intensity that would overwhelm most people. They just don't perform those feelings for an audience. They don't wear their hearts on their sleeves because they know sleeves get dirty, torn, exposed to elements that damage what's delicate. When you accuse them of being emotionally unavailable, you're demanding they dismantle their protection before you've proven you're safe. You're asking them to be reckless with their vulnerability. You're prioritizing your need for immediate emotional access over their need for safety. And the moment you do that, they know you're not the right person for them. Because here's what actually happens when Capricorns feel safe. They're the most emotionally available people you'll ever meet. They'll share fears they've never voiced. They'll cry in front of you. They'll tell you about the wounds they carry. They'll let you see the scared child behind the capable adult. They'll give you access to parts of themselves they keep hidden from the entire world. But you have to earn that. And earning it requires patience, consistency, respect for boundaries, and understanding that their caution isn't rejection of you. It's protection of themselves. Most people aren't willing to do that work. They want instant intimacy. They want emotional access without building trust. They want the treasures without proving they won't squander them. So when you get frustrated and call them emotionally unavailable, what you're really saying is, I want what I want now, and I'm unwilling to do what's necessary to earn it. And Capricorns hear that loud and clear. They understand immediately that you're impatient, entitled, and untrustworthy with vulnerability. That you see their boundaries as obstacles rather than wisdom. And that's when they disappear. Not with anger, not with explanation, just with the quiet knowledge that you were never going to be the person they could be vulnerable with anyway. You failed the test before you even knew you were being tested. And Capricorns don't give second chances when it comes to emotional safety. The brutal irony is that by calling them emotionally unavailable, you guarantee that they'll never be emotionally available to you. You've just shown them exactly why their walls exist. You've confirmed that they were right to be careful. You've proven that people really are careless with what's precious. So they vanish. And you're left thinking they were cold, closed off, impossible to reach. Never realizing that they were actually testing whether you were worthy of the depth they wanted to share. And you failed by demanding what should have been earned. By complaining about boundaries that existed for very good reasons. By prioritizing your comfort over their safety. And somewhere, that Capricorn is building something beautiful with someone who understood that the wait was worth it. That patience was the price of admission to something profound. That emotional availability isn't about instant access, but earned trust. Someone who saw the vault and thought, I'll prove I'm worthy of what's inside, rather than, why won't this just open for me? And now we arrive at comment number 5, the most brutal, most devastating, most relationship-ending comment you could ever make to a Capricorn. Nobody will ever love you if you don't change. This isn't just a comment. This is psychological warfare. This is the materialization of their deepest, darkest, most terrifying fear spoken out loud by someone they trusted. Let me take you inside the mind of a Capricorn when they hear these words. Everything stops. Time freezes. Because you've just confirmed the nightmare they've been running from their entire life. The fear that whispers in the dark at 3 a.m. The terror that drives every achievement, every effort to be better, every desperate attempt to be enough. The belief that they are fundamentally, irredeemably unlovable as they are. Capricorns already believe this on some level. They already think they need to earn love through achievement, through usefulness, through being perfect. They already feel like their authentic self is insufficient. Like they need to be more, do more, achieve more to deserve affection. And you just took that internal torture and validated it. You just told them that their worst fear about themselves is actually true. When you say nobody will ever love them unless they change, you're not motivating them to improve. You're confirming that love is conditional, that who they are right now is unlovable, that acceptance requires transformation, that their core self is so fundamentally flawed that it repels love. And for someone who already struggles with feeling worthy of love, this is annihilation. Here's what makes this comment especially brutal. It usually comes from someone who claimed to love them. A partner, a parent, a close friend, someone who Capricorn let inside their walls, someone they trusted with their vulnerability, someone who knew about their insecurities and fears. And that person just weaponized all of it in one sentence. Think about the betrayal embedded here. Capricorn opened up enough to let you see their flaws, their struggles, their imperfections. They trusted you with the parts of themselves they usually hide. And you took that trust and used it to threaten them. Change or be alone forever. It's not advice. It's a curse. It's a prophecy of abandonment dressed up as concern. But here's what you don't understand. Capricorns have spent their entire lives trying to change into someone more lovable. They've contorted themselves trying to figure out what version of themselves will finally be enough. They've achieved, accomplished, succeeded, proven themselves over and over, hoping that maybe this achievement will be the one that makes them worthy of unconditional love. And it never is. Because conditional love has no finish line. There's always one more thing to change. One more flaw to fix. One more way they're not quite right. The goalpost moves every time they think they've reached it. And now you're moving it again, telling them that everything they've already changed wasn't enough, that they need to keep transforming until they're unrecognizable. When you say this, you're not seeing a person. You're seeing a project, someone to fix, someone whose value is dependent on their willingness to become what you want them to be. You're saying, I don't love who you are. I love who I think you could become if you just stop being yourself. And that's the moment of clarity for Capricorn. The moment they realize that you never actually loved them at all. You loved your fantasy of who they might become. You loved the potential, not the person. You were in love with a future version that would require them to kill their authentic self to create. Here's the brutal truth. People who truly love you don't threaten you with abandonment to force change. They don't hold love hostage. They don't make you feel like you're one flaw away from being unlovable. They love you as you are while supporting your growth. They see your imperfections and choose you anyway. They don't use your fear of loneliness as leverage. So when you say nobody will ever love you if you don't change, what Capricorn hears is, I don't love you. I'm tolerating you while waiting for you to become someone else. And if you don't comply, I'll leave. And I want you to believe that everyone else will leave too. And you know what Capricorns do with that information? They call your bluff. Not because they don't fear being alone. They fear it desperately. But they fear losing themselves even more. They fear becoming so transformed, so molded by others' expectations, that they no longer recognize the person in the mirror. So they choose the terrifying unknown of solitude over the soul death of transformation. They choose to be alone as themselves rather than partnered as someone else. They choose the pain of loneliness over the pain of self-betrayal. Because at least when you're alone, you're still you. When they disappear after this comment, it's not dramatic. It's not impulsive. It's the most rational decision they could make. You've told them that your love has conditions they can't meet without destroying themselves. You've told them that being loved by you requires not being themselves. And they're choosing themselves. The most brutal part? You probably thought you were helping. Thought you were giving them a wake-up call. Thought you were doing them a favor by being honest. But what you actually did was confirm that they can't trust you with their authentic self. That your love was always conditional. that they were right to keep their walls up. And somewhere years from now, you'll wonder why that Capricorn vanished so completely. Why they never responded to your apologies or attempts to reconnect. And the answer is simple. You told them who they are isn't lovable. And they decided to find someone who disagrees. Someone who loves them not despite who they are, but because of it. And here we stand at the heart of the Capricorn paradox. 5 comments. 5 wounds. 5 moments where words became weapons that ended relationships without warning. But let's talk about what connects all of these. Every single comment attacks the same core wound. The belief that who Capricorn is, authentically and fundamentally, is not enough. Not interesting enough. Not light enough. Not emotionally open enough. Not different enough from their past. Not changeable enough for love. Capricorns walk through the world carrying an impossible burden. They must be strong but not cold. Serious but not boring. Responsible but not absent. Boundaried but not unavailable. Themselves but also willing to change completely. They must be mountains that somehow also flow like water. Solid but flexible. Unchanging but adaptable. It's an impossible standard that guarantees failure. And when they fail, when someone throws one of these 5 comments at them, they don't get angry. They don't argue. They don't defend. Because somewhere deep in their soul, they already believed it was true. You just confirmed it. You just gave voice to their inner critic. You just proved that their fears about themselves were justified all along. But here's what breaks my heart about all of this. Behind every disappeared Capricorn is someone who desperately wanted to be seen. Not fixed. Not changed. Not molded into something more convenient. Just seen. Understood. Accepted. Loved for the depth they offer, the stability they provide, the loyalty they embody, the strength they carry. They wanted someone to say, I see your seriousness and I value it. I see your boundaries and I respect them. I see your complexity and I'm patient with it. I see your flaws and I love you anyway. I see who you are, not who I want you to be. And you're enough. Exactly as you are. Right now. You're enough. But instead, they got comments that confirmed they're too much and not enough simultaneously. Too serious, but too boring. Too guarded, but too cold. Too much like their past, but not enough like your ideal. And so they left. Not because they're unforgiving, but because staying would require them to betray themselves. The tragedy of loving a Capricorn is that they will give you everything if you just give them safety. They will be vulnerable if you prove you're trustworthy. They will lighten up if you create space where consequences don't feel life or death. They will open up if you show patience. They will share their emotional depths if you demonstrate you won't weaponize them. But most people aren't willing to do that work. Most people want the result without the process. The intimacy without the trust building. The vulnerability without the safety creating. The transformation without understanding why the protection exists in the first place. And so Capricorns keep disappearing, keep vanishing from lives of people who couldn't see past their defenses to the treasure underneath. Keep choosing solitude over the soul-crushing experience of being told, once again, that who they are isn't quite right. So here's what I want you to understand. If you have a Capricorn in your life, you're holding something rare. Someone who will be loyal when everyone else is fickle. Who will be stable when everything else is chaos. Who will be honest when everyone else is performing. Who will build something real when everyone else is chasing illusions. But that gift comes with responsibility. You have to be worthy of it. You have to be someone who sees their depth as value, not burden. Who sees their caution as wisdom, not weakness. Who sees their seriousness as integrity, not rigidity. Who sees their boundaries as health, not obstacles. And you absolutely cannot use these 5 comments. Ever. Not in frustration. Not in arguments. Not even as honest feedback. Because these aren't just words. They're grenades. And once you throw them, you can't take them back. The damage is permanent. The relationship is over. If you're a Capricorn watching this, I want you to know something. The right person won't say these things. The right person will be patient with your pace. Will respect your boundaries. Will appreciate your depth. will understand that your seriousness is protection, not personality. Will love you not despite who you are, but because of it. And when someone says these comments to you, your instinct to disappear isn't wrong. It's wisdom. It's self-preservation. It's choosing yourself. And that's always the right choice. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you experienced this? Have you been on either side of these comments? Did you disappear, or did someone disappear on you? What happened? How did it feel? What did you learn? Drop your story in the comments. Be honest. Be vulnerable. Because these conversations are how we all learn to communicate better. How we learn to love better. How we learn to see past our assumptions to the real human beings in front of us. And if this video helped you understand something you didn't before, if it made you see a Capricorn differently, or if it helped you understand yourself better, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear this. Because the more we understand each other, the less we hurt each other accidentally. You've seen the mountain. Now you understand the heart beating inside it. The vulnerability hidden behind the strength. The fear masked by confidence. The desperate wish to be loved as they are, not as someone wants them to be. And that understanding, that changes everything. That's how we stop making people disappear. That's how we create space for people to be authentic. That's how we build relationships that last. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember, everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Choose patience. Choose understanding. And never, ever say these 5 comments to anyone you claim to love.